iMovie. Um, we've got a very short time to do a very large topic once again. Some of the things that I'm going to show you are not necessarily best practice, because when it comes to editing footage, typically you start off with a much higher ratio of footage there's a very large ratio between the amount of footage shot and the amount of footage that is actually used in a video. So part of the process is whittling down the footage that you're going to use. Part of the process is importing the footage, and we don't really have time to do the importing. So I'm going to be using found footage or footage that's on my machine, but I'm still going to work you through the process anyway. So let me share my screen as usual. Okay, you all should be able to see my sort of top level of my iMovie screen at the moment. Can I get a quick thumbs up? Everybody can see me fine? Thank you. Okay, so iMovie, like many Mac programs, tend to open up where you left off. This is the top level view of all of my projects. At the moment, you can see, oh gosh, quite a few projects, probably 30, 40, 50 projects over here. And these are projects that I've been working on. If I wanted to narrow down these projects, you can see over here that I have a variety of different libraries that I've created. I'll talk a little bit more about libraries when we actually get into the application. But one of the reasons why you might separate things into different libraries is you might want to store your footage on an external drive. Most of the new computers that we've got have solid state drives. They're super fast, but they're not very big. And digital video footage takes up a lot of space, especially when you've got something like a camera, like the new iPhone 11 has a 4K digital video camera, and that takes up quite a lot of space. So we'll look a little bit more about the libraries over here. But if I wanted to filter this down, say, show me my 5 most recent projects, well, these are the 5 most recent things I've looked at. Let's have a look at the 20 most recent. And these are all the streams that I've been editing over the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, and so on. So these are my projects, and I can double click on any one and go in and work on it. I can see this one is 39 minutes, 29 seconds long, was created on the 15th of June. I can play it, I can open it, I can share it. I can do stuff with it. Not a lot of time for that. If I click on media, I get a second view, and this will become very familiar as we go into editing our footage. And these show me all the libraries that I've got are connected at the moment, and all the footage that's inside these libraries. And if I click on any one of them, you'll see in the right-hand side a preview of the footage, which I can play. And I can access a variety of different libraries as well. So I look at my karate library, you'll see karate. If you look at the live streams, this is all the footage that's in the live streams. So I can preview all my footage over here, but I can't do much with it other than that. So let's go back to my project. And I'm going to make a new movie. So if I click on create new, I have a choice of making a movie or a trailer. We won't go into trailers at the moment. Suffice it to say that it's a lovely way of having a pre-created series of containers where I can pop footage in and it'll build a trailer that's really exciting with music in the background, and it's fun and it's good, but it's not what we're looking at today. So I'm going to make a new movie, and I have 4 libraries assigned to this, connected to my iMovie at the moment. So I'm just going to choose the miscellaneous library and say, okay. So this movie is going to be created in my miscellaneous library. And this, again, looks very similar to what I showed you previously when we were looking at media. And this is basically broken into 3 panes. On the left-hand side, we have access to all of our media. On the right-hand side, we have the canvas where we can preview everything that we're doing and adjust some of the footage in the media. And at the bottom, we have our timeline, which is where we pull in all of our media and start to build our movie. Let's have a look down at the sidebar. Over here, my media sidebar. These are all my libraries, as I said, and this is the contents of my library. So just to show you how that works in practice, I'm going to make a new library. Just close these guys down a little bit by clicking on the flippy triangle. And I'm going to make a new library. So I go File, Open Library. And down here, I can make New. I can open up other ones. I've got some other libraries on external hard drives that aren't open, but let's just make a new library. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. So I'm going to put it inside my home folder, inside movies, and I'm going to call this demo library. Okay, so now I have a new library over here. Now inside libraries, we create what are called events. If we import the footage, it's typically date stamped. But if we're making our own footage, we can rename these into anything that we want. So over here, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to rename this demo movie for workshop. Okay, and you can see there is no media inside here. If I click on demo library, again, no media. If I click on the live streams, if I click on scanning without a scanner, there's very little in here. Actually, I don't know why that one's missing, but let's say take this one. This only has 3 clips. It's got the footage, it's got an intro, and it's got some music, okay? If on the other hand, I click on the live streams name over here, this shows me all the media from every single event inside that library. So I can build my movie out of footage in any library, but this is just a little place where I bring together the footage for this particular one. So if I want to import media, I can click import, and I get an open dialog box over here. And there's a couple of things. If I have a camera connected, I can click on this. It's only showing my camera on the left-hand side over here. So I can click over here and say, hello, this is a little piece of footage that I'm recording in real time. Stop the recording, close, and there's 5-second footage that I've just added to my iMovie library. It's selected with its handles over here. If I had an external camera, I should be able to control it and import the footage into whichever library I chose to do. Now I want to bring some more footage. Now because I've got a little bit of footage in here already, the way that down arrow has disappeared. So I've got this little down arrow up here. I click on there and I can go to my desktop folder and I'm going to open up this folder. And here I have 3 video files, one which I've downloaded from Zoom, screen and speaker keynote, screen only, gallery keynote. I'm going to select all of these 3 and I'm going to import them. And you'll see now I have 3 video files inside here. That one's 57 minutes long. In fact, they're all 57.2 minutes long. And there are 3 separate kinds of containers or 3 separate recordings that Zoom does for me. One is speaker only, one is screen only, and the other is a gallery view of all the participants. So I can use all of those pieces of footage to build a movie and cut away to different bits and pieces. Okay. Each one of these has its own particular set of settings. If I've imported my footage and I'm ready to go, I can hide this little sidebar by clicking here. So now I've got a little bit more space to deal with my footage. Now, over here, I've got a little settings button where I can adjust the clip size, which basically makes them bigger or larger. There's my footage, and there is my audio. And I can choose to show or hide the audio waveforms. And the audio waveforms are quite a nice way of knowing where you are inside your clip sometimes. The other thing is that this is 57 minutes long, but this guy is 5 seconds long, but they take exactly the same size. That's because I'm zoomed all the way out. If I drag this to the right, you'll see now it's going to open up, and now it's going to show me one thumbnail for every 10 minutes worth of footage. And can you see how these are getting larger now? This one was 5 seconds long, so it's only showing me the one thumbnail, whereas this one is 1, 2, 3. You see this little jagged edge at the moment? If I click on this, you'll see how this is highlighted from here to there. This little jagged edge shows me that this clip and this clip is part of the same clip. Similarly with this one, and similarly with this one. And as I move my cursor along the clip, I scrub through, I can see different parts of my footage. Now, if I just wanted to add certain snippets of this footage to my timeline to start to build my movie, you see if I click and drag, it moves the entire clip. But I've decided that I want to preview this and I only want a little piece. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. I want to take, say, from there to about there. So I can start playing. Right? I'm going to just click and start playing. Let's just make this a little bit larger. So we're going to go, say, a few seconds. Now you can see how this is. Now we've got one thumbnail for every 10 seconds. I now have a little bit of footage that's probably about 10 seconds long. I can drag this down to the timeline. And now I've just selected, made it live, it's 12 seconds long. So now I have my timeline. I have started to make my movie now. And I've got my video footage and I've got my audio footage over here. So that's one way of doing, tapping I and O to set my in point and my out point. If I want another piece of this footage and I decide, well, I don't want to hit the I and O point, so I can't remember. If I hold the R key and drag and select, I can select a range of footage. And once I've got those handles, I can make it smaller, make it larger. And for those of you who like your keyboard, you saw me drag this down into the timeline. But if I hit the E key, it inserts the footage after the last clip in my timeline. Click there, and I now have two pieces of footage. So I'm going to go down to my timeline now and click. If I wanted to the top level, once again, you see I now have two pieces of footage that are one after the other. So I'm starting to build my movie out of disparate clips. Now, just like I had separate settings for my clip size and my zoom over here, my timeline has its own custom settings over here. So if I drag this handle all the way to the left, I get one thumbnail for each clip. And if I drag it out to the right, you'll see my timeline stretches out and I can do more precise selections and edits. So I use this to control my view. If I've got a very long movie, I can shrink it down, say it's an hour and a half. I can just see each thumbnail, jump to each one, and then expand it out to work on minute parts of my clip. If I click on settings over here, I'm not going to delve into the themes, but again, suffice it to say, there are some predefined themes that give me different styles for my text, for my transitions, and so on. We're working with no theme at the moment, and I'm happy to work with that on a later video, but we really don't have time to delve into that now. I also want my movie to fade in from black and fade out from black. And I can also adjust the clip size. So if we just open this up a little bit more and go to my settings, I can make my clips, I can make them larger or smaller on the timeline. So again, in a nutshell, my media, my canvas where I preview my movie or my footage, and my timeline at the bottom. Okay, let's go back to my media. And I'm going to open this back up again. As well as our video footage that we've imported from the side, I also have audio, and I've got access to all the music that's in my iTunes library. So if I tap in, you can get music and you can drag that in, select some, drag it into my movie, and now I have music with my movie. Just going to delete that. And I've got access to a whole bunch of sound effects. So we've got bell towers, as you can see. There's skiing, sleigh bells. And if we've got any GarageBand footage that we've created ourselves or any GarageBand music, we can play that and access that to bring it into our movie. We also have titles, which I'll come back to in a minute. But if I drag over the title, here's a standard title, and scrub left or right, you can see what happens if I apply that title. Here's another one with some, some kind of flashbulb effects on it. Here's one where the title blurs as it moves along, as it moves in. Here's one with even more flash bulbs. So we can use these guys in here. We can set backgrounds. And some of these backgrounds have animation to them. So here's a little underwater theme. Here's an organic theme. We might use that as a title. In fact, let's take this one and we'll drag it into the beginning. See, that's a 4-second long clip. So I've now added 4 seconds of this type of this background at the beginning of my movie. We also have something that's fun if you're doing a travelogue. You can bring maps in. Now they've got a bunch of maps. Take a few seconds to create it. It should have created it already because I did this earlier this morning. Let's just take this down here. Let's say I've got a little travelogue and I'm moving from country to country to country, and I wanted to say, okay, now we're flying from Cape Town to Kigali. I click on my footage, and over here in my little preview pane, which we haven't really looked at at all, I can say, I'm going to start in Cape Town. Let's take Cape Town. And I'm going to end this off in Kigali. Done. And now I have a 4-second clip where it traces my route. And if I was then going from Kigali to Beijing, I could add another clip and have my start at Kigali and move to Beijing. So a lot of stuff that you can do with this. So this is quite a lot of fun. So I'm now starting to pull stuff together to make my movie. So let me just delete all of this. Oh, sorry. And we have our transitions as well. And our transitions are what happens when you go from clip A to clip B. And we've got a bunch of them. We've got cross dissolves. We've got fades. We've got swaps. You'll recognize this one from the change from our intro title to the actual presentation in our workshops. You've got puzzles. You've got page curls. And if I take this and drag it between 2 clips, and if you can see that 1 second closely enough, I now have a 1-second transition. If I wanted to on the top level, okay, it hasn't rendered it yet, but if I wanted to on the top level, once again, can't see that. I can't see it, but when I render it out, oh, there we go. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner. If I do it slowly, let's try it one more time. I wanted to on the top level. No, we don't see it. We're not seeing it at the moment. There we go. If you can see on the right-hand screen, once I render it out, you'll see a page turn. Now you can see over here, it's got a 1 second. Oh, there we go. Shows that quite nicely now. I want that to go a little slower. I double click on there. And I say, you know what? Make that 3 seconds. Not 33. And just apply to this clip. Now, when I play that back, if I want to, it will go much slower. So it builds additional frames. Now, this is one thing that's very important. When you do a transition, it takes frames from the video on the left, and it takes video from the frames from the video on the right, and it uses them to build the transition. Now, if you've got a 5-second clip on the left and a 5-second clip on the right, and you make a 15-second cross dissolve, there are not enough frames on the left and the right. And that's a typical trap that some people fall into. They say, I want a 5-second transition, but they've only got 2 seconds to the left and 2 seconds to the right. There has to be enough frames on either side of the footage in order to do your transition. So I said, we're running a little low on time. I said I would show how to build the presentations that we do. So, sorry, I'm going to go back to my media. And in my demo library, I'm going to create a new event. And I'm going to call this Keynote Workshop. Okay. Actually, let's just make these guys a little bit smaller. And zoom out. Okay. So here's my footage for the video. This is screen and speaker. This is just the speaker. Oh, no, that's just me earlier. And this is only the screen. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down. Now, in my timeline, you have 2 video channels and 1 audio channel. Let's see what this looks like. If I tap down here, let's go a little bit further and start to play, the look and feel of my toolbar to have the video starting to play. Now, if I wanted to accent something, if I wanted to show something off, I could drag, say, this onto my second video timeline. Let's just say pop it on the top there, and let's make it slightly larger. So now you see I've got 1 video clip. Play you quickly. The arrangement tools,
this is a
front and
piece of
center.
footage that
So you could probably hear the audio from that playing and the audio from that playing. Now, there's four effects that we can do when we're adding different footage over here. The first one is what's called a cutaway. And a cutaway is when you've only got one camera, but you're filming two people. You want to keep the audio from the first cut, but you want to see the other person nodding in an acknowledgement. So I would cut from this clip to this clip and take the audio down from my clip, because I might have filmed it at a different time, and just have some sort of acknowledgement. So a cutaway replaces the footage underneath. Okay. The other thing we can do is we can do a green screen, blue screen. I'm not going to go there right now because I don't have that footage, but we can also do a split screen. And now it takes the footage underneath and puts it on one side. So we now have two frames. Now, this one is on the left. I could switch them to the right. I could make it top or bottom. So I can do some interesting effects like that. And finally, I've got picture in picture. And picture in picture allows me to have a second video, which is appearing inside there. Let's just go back. And example, the arrangement tools, front and center, so that I'm recording in real time or back. I can drag this up. Okay. So let's click this clip. What else can we do with this very quickly? If I click on picture in picture, I can give it a frame. I can give it the frame a color. Let's make something really obvious so that you can see it. I can also swap. So I can take what was the underlying frame and make that picture in picture. Let's just swap that back, go back to dissolve. Now, the problem I've got at the moment, though, is that the audio from both is playing. The arrangement tools, front and center. So if I just wanted the audio, let's just zoom this out so you can see this a little bit bigger. Make the clip size somewhat bigger. So now you can see the audio waveforms from here and the audio waveforms from here. So if I wanted to mute the audio in here, can you see as I drag my cursor into the audio waveform, I can just pull that down to 0. And now when I play this, example, the arrangement tools, front and center, so that I can move stuff to the front and back. I only have the audio. I can drag. What if I'm just going to undo that? What if I wanted to do it underneath? So I've got a couple of ways of doing this. I can split this clip and mute this, and split it over here and mute this, because if I drag this down, it drags the entire audio down. I don't want to do that. So one way of doing it is just to position my playback head over there, select this clip, and to split the clip into two different parts. There is a menu command. I can never remember it. I just hit Command B, B for blade, and you see now I have two separate clips. When I play back, they play back seamlessly. The arrangement, the frames follow one after the other. And now I can do the same over here. And now I can reduce this down. And if I play these back, hello, this is a little piece of footage that I'm recording in real time. Drag this up to the top here, forward. But it's a little noisy, right? It didn't really do a nice job of the fade in and fade outs. So I'm going to undo those blades. And one of the things we can do is if I hold down the Option key, and I position my cursor, instead of having the double-headed up and down arrow, you'll see I can get a little pointer. So I'm going to click on that, and I insert a little edit point. I'm going to click there, and you'll see why I'm doing 2. Because if I now drag this one down, this just takes the audio down, and it does it as a nice fade. You can see I can just drag this in a little bit one way, drag this a little bit. Now if I play this back, the arrangement, hello, this is a little piece of footage that I'm recording in real time. And drag this up to the top. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Let's zoom this back out again. So let's look at the intro and outro, because I'm super aware that we're running short of time over here. I'm going to go to my live streams, and over here, here's my intro that I've brought in. It's not particularly for this session, but this was made in Keynote. Those of you who saw the Keynote presentation the other day, I showed how we could use Keynote to create really nice titles, things that you can't necessarily see inside iMovie, and bring them in. So this is a little movie file. I'm going to drag this into the beginning. I have a little outro over here, which has for more information, also done in Keynote. I'm going to take this and pop it into the end. Okay. And I've got some audio. So let's make these as big as I possibly can. Let's make our clip size big. And I want to see more of my timeline. So I'm going to drag the center line. I'm going to drag the center up. Come on. There we go. So I'm going to drag this in and let's zoom a little wider. So I want to take my audio and I want to drag this in here. Now, can you see that little green line just in the top left-hand corner of the audio file? Can you see, again, while I'm dragging it, look at the top right-hand corner of my canvas. It's showing me where that clip's going to be inserted. And I want that clip only to start playing as soon as the first trace appears. There, over there. So I leave that there. Because that has that green line there, if I move this anywhere, this audio clip is now tied to this over here. Let's add a transition. I want to do a swap. Where's my swap? There we go. I'm going to drag this in between the two. You probably won't see it in real time. It has to build the render. Oh, there we go. There's our swap. And I want to trim this back so that the audio ends at the end of that. So now we've got our... There we go. Let's pull this back down. And again, by the same token, at the end, I've got a little bit of audio that I want to pop in there. I can copy and paste this. Go to the end here, paste it. So I've got my intro and outro. I can adjust the volumes for these as well. Now, one thing that I don't do inside our presentations is I don't title them. So for the sake of this, I'll show you how to do it. If I go to my titles and I decide I want a lower third where I want some text appearing over the bottom of my screen, I take a title, let's take a lower third here, and I'm going to drag this again, just like the green handle on the audio file. I have a purple handle on this one. Let's go in a little bit more. And you can see I now have a title inserted at a certain point. And here I can say keynote presentation. And let's give it a date, June 20th. And now as I scrub across here, whatever effects were in the title, if any, will play back. No, so that was just an appearance. But if I had a different one, let's just add, let's say the flashbulb one. Let's take this one here. Brought to you by DigiCape. Okay, and this is 4 seconds long. Let's see if it's rendered out already. So my hard drive is, the fans are spinning. There we go, brought to you by DigiCape. See it zooming in nicely. Now, if I want this to be longer than 4 seconds, I just drag it out. And that'll slow down the animation. Let's make it 9 seconds. Play it back. So we can adjust the length of our titles. We can add titles on top of titles. Zoom back out so you can start to see how this is built. So a bit rough and ready, but you guys get the idea behind this. Now, if I wanted to export this, I can go File, Share, and now I can email this to somebody, and this is going to be far too big for YouTube, for email. If I choose YouTube, if I haven't already signed up, it'll prompt me for my YouTube credentials, and it'll upload it to YouTube. I can prepare for Facebook, for Vimeo, another third-party video host, if you like. I can save it out as an image, or I can save it out as a file. If I choose File, I now have the option of choosing different sizes, giving it a description, what the quality is going to be like, and what the compression is like. Just so for the record, I choose better quality. It takes a bit longer, but it makes it easier for you guys to see the text. And if I click Next now, it asks me for a location to save the file, and you've already seen the results. It will take, for this file, would probably take about 10 minutes to render this all out as a file. So I don't think I've missed anything that I didn't want to show you. except for one thing. Um, I showed you how you could bring in some of your backgrounds. Now, if you want to bring in photos and you wanted to have just an animated slideshow of pictures, it works exactly the same way as backgrounds. So let me click on my photos over here. And now I've got access to my photo library on my computer. And I can see my videos. You can see at the moment I'm seeing all my albums. So if I wanted to bring a still in over here, let's say, for example, I'll take this guy, and I want to bring it into the end of my movie. Typically, it brings it in as a 4-second clip because a still is a still. And it applies something called the Ken Burns effect. So if I double click on the photo file, firstly, if I want it to be longer, I can just drag it out. You can see now it's, well, that's a hell of a long now. That's 2 minutes. And if I play this, you'll see the transition is super slow. So let's take it back to something a bit more manageable. Let me just open this up a bit. Too much. Okay, that's 10 seconds. So if I play this back now, you'll see I've got quite a nice smooth animation. This is your default behavior when you add a photo. And the Ken Burns effect, if any of you are familiar with the director Ken Burns, he does some stunning documentaries, get them on Netflix, Civil War, Vietnam War, stunning stuff. He pioneered this effect where you could take stills and then pan across them to tell a story. So over here, we've got start and end. So if I click start and I reshape this, frame, if I just play it back now, it'll start on the bottom left corner and zoom out to the bigger one. And obviously, the slower it is, the smoother it'll be. If I take my end file and I make it the same size as the one on the left, and drag this to the right, now if I preview this, I get a horizontal pan across my footage. Obviously, the higher resolution my photos, the clearer the pictures will be. But I didn't want to leave here without telling you anything about the Ken Burns effect, because some people just like to get a whole bunch of pictures in there and make slideshows out of their still footage. In another iMovie session, we'll talk about what you can actually do with things like this, where you can adjust your color, where you can adjust your brightness and contrast, where you can get rid of shake on the camera. We can affect the audio, we can speed things up, slow them down, we can apply filters, and we can even do things like have videos moving across the screen as we play it. But I think that's enough for now. I hope I've covered the fundamentals for you guys. I know we covered quite a lot. But the video will be online for you to watch and freeze frame or pause and come back and watch it a bit later. So I'm going to end my screen sharing there and open it up to questions from everybody.
Yes, hi. Hi, Alan. Sorry, man, I had net issues, so I joined late, but I'll watch the video. But just a question, just in case I don't get an answer when I watch the video later. What is the point of starting at the top left-hand corner and then dragging everything down? I'm never quite sure. Do we start creating the video
in the media? I see. Okay. So in a nutshell, most people film far too much footage. Right. And because we're so what's the right word, orally trained. If you watch a video, it's very rare that any scene in your video that you're watching on screen is longer than 3-4 seconds. The view is constantly changing its view from person A to person B to close shot to medium shot to long shot. And even my late mother, bless her, would not sit through a 45-minute video of me feeding my son or my daughter at the age of 18 months. You've got to make it watchable. So typically, as I said when we started, there's a lot of footage that you're not going to use. So the idea is that you've got your media up at the top. One thing I didn't show you at the beginning, but I did talk about it, was actually going through your footage and rating your footage. So you say, okay, I like this clip. I'm never going to use this clip, and so on. And you can go through and rate it. And then you can say, okay, just show me the stuff that I've rated. And from that, I bring that down into my timeline. Because literally, you know, the stuff that we're doing is a slightly different case, because I'm taking some footage that is a workshop. It has a beginning, it has an end. And the only time I edit it is if I make a mistake and I want to make myself look good up on YouTube for posterity. But in the main, you're taking short clips, you're stringing them together, and you might have an audio file at the bottom that joins everything together. And if you don't believe me, watch a movie tonight on TV and turn the sound down for a bit. Your ears hear things. And one thing, like there's one fantastic technique. How many of you are aware of that trick where the sound from the clip that's about to come on plays before they cut to that scene? So you'll often hear something ringing, and then they'll cut to somebody answering the phone, but it's out of the scene. So it's a way of joining those things together. So that's why you've got your media library in the top hand corner, but down at the bottom is the work that you're going to finish off with. Does that answer your question?
It does indeed. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Bernard, you had a question, then Margie.
Yeah, mine was just a simple question. In the middle of your presentation, you had the one clip above the other, and I was trying to work out why, but I think it's because you're using the sound from the top one to import into the bottom one. Is that right?
Well, it's both actually, because what I did with, I have a choice of what I want to do with the clip on top. I can use it to replace, to override, because whatever's on top takes preference. So if it's full size, it will override what's at the bottom. And the example that I made was, let's say you've only got one camera and you're interviewing somebody. So that whole interview is your bottom row. And then the person goes away and you go, okay, thanks. Okay, now I'm the interviewer. I'm just going to set up the camera and I'm going to sit there going, that's very interesting, right? And then I take that footage, I put it above where that person's talking. I have no audio. The audio is going along the bottom. So the interview is continuing. It was filmed in a different location. It was sort of better, but I'm making it look a little bit more interesting. But the other thing that I showed was then you can also take it and do picture in picture. So if you've got something where you want to show something that's happening in a different part of the scene, but you don't want to obscure what's going on underneath, you can make a picture in picture if you want. And then you can affect the audio from either track. You can bring one up, take one down.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Sorry, who is next? Margie.
I've noticed when I'm saving the movie that if I take that little bottom strip and I delete it so that I can put my next one, it doesn't render. So I've got to wait for that little clock to start showing before I can actually bring in my next movie. Have you noticed that?
No.
So you know when you save it, you get a little
Yes.
clock that starts.
Yes, that's exporting it, yes?
Yes. So I've got to wait for that clock to start showing that it's doing something, because if I go and I delete the bottom part, the last third, so I can start with my next one, before that clock has started, it doesn't render the movie, it says failed.
Well, no, but what you're doing is you're throwing away the footage that it's trying to export. When it saves the movie, it's not saving. When you just do a save, you're saving your project. When you do an export, you're making a brand new movie that is made up of all the components that you've dragged into the timeline. So if you throw away any of that footage before it's finished, it can't render it because you've chucked away some of the footage. It's missing bits and pieces.
Well,
so you have to wait for that to complete.
It seems to work if it starts that little clock and then I do it, it works. But I don't have to wait for it to go all the way around. But if it hasn't started, no, I don't. I've done that. I do it every night when I'm doing my movies.
Okay,
but
you'll have to show me, because you have to show me, because literally you're throwing away the footage that it's using to build a new movie file.
Okay. Well, I'll be very careful of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I made a big mistake the other day. I'm not going to say anything. David, you had a question. What's the difference between resolution and quality when saving movies? So resolution is the size of the movie. If you're viewing it at full size, right, in real size, pixel for pixel, you've got 480, 520, 720p, 1080. Those are bigger and bigger movies. And typically, they take more and more space. Quality is the algorithms it uses to generate the video. So if you imagine it's taking your audio, your video, your titles, and it's putting it together. And it's also compressing it, because if we had full size quality, the files would be huge. They'd be very, very large. So the higher the quality, the slower the compression. It does more work. It does more calculation. Sometimes it does what's called a double pass. So it tries to bring out the best quality of the image by analyzing it, in simplistic terms, analyzing it more deeply. So and also if the quality is higher, if you've got two 720p movies and you save one at lower quality and one at higher quality, the file sizes will be different. The lower quality would probably be smaller, because there's probably less information retained, even though they're exactly the same screen size. I mean, an only analogy I can make, for example, is you're all familiar with JPEG, right? We all know, we've been using the internet for years. Image files are JPEG files. They are compressed files. And the way JPEG works, if you're interested, sorry, I know this stuff. It'd be great if I could do Trivial Pursuits about JPEG. A JPEG file, let's say, for example, you've got an image, two images, exactly like 600 by 400 pixels. But one is just a field of blue and the other is a box of rubber bands of different colors. If you compress them as JPEGs, the one of the box of blue will be teeny tiny, whereas the one of the rubber bands will be hugely complex. And it's because it's the way it does its encoding. So for example, the box of blue, the field of blue will go, okay, that first pixel is blue. Okay, I got that. Actually, all the first pixels are blue. So I can record that first line as 600 pixels of blue. Just one bit of information. Oh, hang on, the second row is the same. The third row is the same. So I can say that is 1 by 4 equals blue. So there's just like 2 or 3 bits of information that record all of that information about those rows of blue. If I have a box of rubber bands where each one is a different color pixel, it can't compress it the same way. It can't go, that's a whole row of blue, because it's not. It's a row of blue. There's a pixel of blue, green, red, blue, green, red, and so on. And it looks for patterns that it uses to compress it. By the same token, if you're compressing a video, it does similar sorts of things, but over time. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. I'm new to this. Where do I find your links for these to go over them again? I haven't tried.
I send them out as an email. You should have been receiving emails either on the same day or the following morning, which will have a link to the videos. And at the end of the month, I do a compendium, a digest, which has links for all of the ones that you may have missed and not attended.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick one. On memory, the more memory you've got, the better the faster your machine will be, I assume. Yeah,
to a degree. You know, it reads off the drive a lot.
Okay.
You know, the files that I download from Zoom are already super compressed, so it's not so big. But if you take into account, we've been doing this for what, about 6-7 weeks now. My streaming library is now about 15 gigs. So yeah, you're right. You know, the more memory you've got, typically, the more memory you've got, the better your machine works, period.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Lovely seeing you all again. Good, and I look forward to seeing you guys. Angelo's not well at the moment, so I might have to do a bit of brushing up on photo for tomorrow. He's scheduled to do the photo session tomorrow. I hope he's better. But look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.
Great. Thank you.
Very much.
Bye.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.